Excerpts from the United Nations document A/AC.14/32. Ad hoc Committee on the Palestinian Question, Report of Subcommittee 2, 11th of November 1947. Excerpts from the introduction and conclusion are reproduced here. Copyright of the United Nations 1947. Excerpts from Introduction. Introduction. 1. Subcommittee 2 on Palestine was set up on the 23rd of October 1947, following the decision of the Ad hoc Committee on Palestine to establish two subcommittees. By virtue of the authority conferred on him by the Ad hoc Committee, the chairman nominated the following countries as members of Subcommittee 2: Afghanistan, Colombia, Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Syria and Yemen. The terms of reference of the subcommittee were as follows. 1. To draw up a detailed plan for the future government of Palestine, in accordance with the basic principles expressed in the proposal submitted to the General Assembly by delegations of Saudi Arabia and Iraq, documents A/317 and A/328 respectively, and the proposal submitted to the Ad hoc Committee by the delegations of Syria, document A/14/22. 2. To incorporate this plan in the form of recommendations. Working groups were established to deal with each of these main issues, and they were constituted as follows. 1. Legal problems: Pakistan, Syria and Saudi Arabia. 2. Refugee problems: Afghanistan, Colombia and Lebanon. 3. Constitutional proposals: Egypt, Iraq and Yemen. Excerpts from conclusion. Resolution number 3, Ad hoc Committee on the Palestine Question, Draft Resolution on the Constitution and Future Government of Palestine. The General Assembly, taking note of the declaration by the mandatory power of its intention to withdraw from Palestine, considering that Palestine is a mandated territory whose independence was provisionally recognized by virtue of paragraph 4 of Article 22 of the Covenant of the League of Nations. Recognizing that the only solution in consonance with the objectives of the Covenant of the League of Nations and the principles of the Charter of the United Nations is one that is acceptable to the majority of the people of Palestine. Being satisfied that the partition of Palestine is unjust, illegal and impracticable, and that the only just and workable solution is the immediate establishment of a unitary, democratic and independent state with adequate safeguards for minorities. Believing that peaceful and orderly transfer of power from the mandatory to the government of the people of Palestine is necessary in the interest of all concerned. Recommends that a provisional government representative of all important sections of the citizenry in proportion to their numerical strength should be set up as early as possible in Palestine. 2. That the powers and functions of the present administration of Palestine should be vested in the provisional government as soon as the latter is constituted. 3. That the mandatory power should begin the withdrawal of its forces and services from Palestine as soon as the provisional government is installed and should complete the withdrawal within 1 year. 4. That the provisional government should, as soon as practicable, enact an electoral law for the setting up of a constituent assembly, prepare an electoral register and hold elections for the constituent assembly. 5. That the Constituent Assembly should also function as a legislature, and that the provisional government should be responsible to it until elections for a legislature are held under the new constitution. 6. That while the task of framing a constitution for Palestine must be left to the Constituent Assembly, the following basic principles shall be strictly adhered to. 1. Palestine shall be a unitary and sovereign state. 2. It shall have a democratic constitution with an elected legislature and an executive responsible for the legislature. 3. The constitution shall provide guarantees for the sanctity of the holy places, covering inviolability, maintenance, freedom of access, and freedom of worship in accordance with the status quo. 4. The Constitution shall guarantee respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms without distinction as to race, sex, language or religion, and freedom of religious belief and practice in accordance with the status quo, including the maintenance of separate religious courts to deal with matter of personal status. 5. The Constitution shall guarantee the rights of religious bodies or other societies and individuals to maintain, in addition to educational establishments administered by public authority, educational institutions of their own, subject to normal government supervision and inspection. 6. The Constitution shall recognise the right of Jews to employ Hebrew as a second official language in areas in which they are in a majority. 7. The law of naturalisation and citizenship shall provide, amongst other conditions, that the applicant should be a legal resident of Palestine for a continuous period to be determined by the Constituent Assembly. 8. The Constitution shall ensure adequate representation in the legislature for all important sections of the citizenry in proportion to their numerical strength. 9. The Constitution shall also provide for adequate reflection in the executive and the administration of the distribution of representation in the legislature. 10. The Constitution shall authorise the legislature to invest local authorities with wide discretion in matters connected with education, health, and other social services. 11. The Constitution shall provide for the setting up of a Supreme Court, the jurisdiction of which shall include, inter alia, the power to pronounce upon the constitutional validity of all legislation, and it shall be open to any aggrieved party to have recourse to that tribunal. 12. The guarantees contained in the Constitution concerning the rights and safeguards of minorities shall not be subject to amendment or modification without the consent of the minority concerned expressed through a majority of its representatives in the legislature.